Let's take a look at components and deployments. These are the software components that you need to download and install onto the target devices that you're going to be working with. Yes, it's a cloud service, but we still need to install some software on the target machines. So the best way to think about the architecture for Acronis Cyber Cloud is as a 3-tier architecture, like a 3-layer cake. And on that top layer is our data source. This is the target device that we're either backing up, protecting, synchronizing files to. And in all cases, we're going to have a small piece of software that's called an agent that we're going to install onto that machine so that it can interact with the cloud service. Those could be physical servers, virtual servers, cloud servers, applications, mobile devices, endpoints, all kinds of different things that they could be. In the middle layer, we have our management console. And that is the portion of the system that you interact with through your web portal. There are 3 different models of deployment that we do for that. One is an Acronis hosted model, the second is a hybrid model, and the third is an SP hosted model. We'll go into more depth with that in a minute, but it really goes to where is the software installed and where is the storage for the devices. And that third layer is the storage layer. Most of our storage is going to be obviously done in the cloud, and there's 2 different ways to do that, either in the Acronis cloud or in your own partner cloud. That may be in your own data center or it may be in a third-party data center. But also we provide both local and networks, local solutions on-premise for our customers if they need to have a local copy as well. So let's take a look at some of the downloadable bits that you're going to be using. And the first thing we're going to do is start with the data sources. That is those agents that we talked about. And we'll start right at the top with the top 3 ones there. I should note this first page is dealing only with Acronis Cyber Protect and Acronis Cyber Backup, and of course disaster recovery. The first 3 are operating system level agents, and those are for Windows, Linux, and Macs. We'll come back to these time and again as we look through the rest of the list, because oftentimes other agents are installed along with the operating system agent. Going down to the virtualization category, you'll see that we have agents for VMware and for Hyper-V. For VMware, we have 2 forms. One that gets installed along with the Windows agent, and so you'll be toggling that on with the Windows agent. Another one that is a virtual appliance, so that you can have an OVF template that you can simply install into VMware and make it work. We also have, of course, Hyper-V, and Hyper-V again will be installed with your Windows agent and will be toggled on. We also have an agent for Virtuoso that works in the same way. Notice the virtualization categories that are not mentioned here. Citrix, Red Hat, KVM, Nutanix, and so forth. That's because for those particular types of virtualization, we're going to be doing it at the operating system level on the guest OS. And so we'll use those Windows or Linux agents instead. Moving off to the next column, we'll see we have an agent for Office 365. Almost none of you will be using that on a regular basis. The agent for Office 365 is only needed when you are wanting to do a local copy of email backups onto your customer's local repository. Otherwise, you will use simply a cloud-to-cloud solution where we ask you for your credentials and it will be taken care of. Nothing more to install when you use Office 365 that way. The next 3 are Microsoft applications. And again, we're going to install those along with the agent for Windows. So we'll have Exchange, SQL, and Active Directory. You'll notice that we don't mention SharePoint here. We do back up SharePoint, but SharePoint is just a version of SQL. So for backup purposes, we install the agent for SQL. And for recovery, you'll see we have another device for that. We also have an agent for Oracle. We support that for both Windows and Linux. And then for our mobile apps, iOS and Android, we have individual apps, not surprisingly, found in the app stores for those particular devices, and that's where you'll go to get those. In the middle layer, we have our management console. There's nothing really to download here unless you use our service provider hosted model, and we'll talk more about that in a minute. And then down at the bottom, we have our storage. This is where are we going to store the data. We, of course, can store it to a local folder, simply plug in a hard drive, and you can do that, but also to network folders, including SMB and NFS shares. And then, of course, most of your customers are going to be backing that up to cloud. And, of course, the Acronis Cloud is the primary source for that. But you could also, if you're in that business, have your own service provider cloud storage and send customers to yours. You do this using our Acronis Cyber Infrastructure product. We'll talk about that later. There are a few extra tools that we can download and install that aren't part of that 3-layer cake. The first is the bootable media. We sometimes have a device that's unresponsive, and so we're going to have to install software onto that non-responsive device using bootable media. We also have a cyber protection monitor that can be installed in the system tray and track the progress of your machine, and a command line tool that can be used during troubleshooting to figure out what's going on. And there is that Acronis SharePoint Explorer that we were talking about. In case you need to granularly recover something from SharePoint, you can do that. Let's take a look at the Acronis Cyber Files Cloud components. There are 2 ways that we back up that we integrate with Cyber Files Cloud. One is that we have mobile devices that can have apps that integrate, and so you'll see downloads here at the App Store for the appropriate iOS or Android device. And then on desktops, we have a widget that you'll download either for PC or for Mac that you'll install into that machine, and you'll designate a folder on that machine to be your synchronization folder. And then, of course, you can always enter in through just the web browser, go into the console and manage it that way. You won't have to worry very much about the management console, same reasons that we saw in the portal for backup. And then for local storage, we have the ability to store in the same way, where you can have local storage, but also probably much more likely in this product to have cloud storage, either your partner cloud storage or Acronis' own cloud storage. And then finally, we have Notary. There's not much to know here. There are no downloadable components. We'll talk about Notary as we go through the course, but it is a completely cloud service, and so you're going to interact with it through the web browser. You're going to use a management portal in the web, and it's all going to be stored in the Acronis Cloud, so there's nothing to install for that system. Let's take a look at some of the deployment options. First, we'll talk about Protect and Cyber Backup. What we want to point out here is you'll notice that we have the ability to back up to our own Acronis Cloud, and that management console can also live in the Acronis Cloud, and so therefore there's nothing more to do. You get your username and password and you hand it to your customer. We also make it possible to do the service provider cloud, so you can have your own version of cloud. Despite the fact that we do have cloud storage, we can also store that information locally, including onto network storage, and you'll see all of our devices down here below with their agents on them. In Files, we have a very similar setup. We'll see that we have our console at the Acronis Cloud. We have our storage into one of the 2 types of clouds, and you'll see that we have our deployed bits out, our agents out to the devices. And then finally, Notary is all in the cloud again. Very simple, very easy to install and use. I did mention we have 3 different deployment models. Most of our customers are in the Acronis hosted model. That means that they have us manage the software, and they also use our Acronis Cloud storage for storing the data. Of course, many of our partners are experts at running data centers, and so they prefer to have their own service provider cloud storage, but still want us to maintain the multi-tier, multi-tenant system. And so we can do that, and that is called our hybrid model. And then in the third model, sometimes service providers are required to have everything in their own data center, including their software. And so we will actually install our software into your data center. Very few of our partners actually do this because it's got a lot of overhead and a lot of commitment to it. You have to have sandboxes, you have to have extra team members working on it. It's a lot more commitment in terms of resources. But it is definitely possible, and we do have any number of partners who do this. Finally, we have a table here for you about the various deployment models that are available for the various services that are in the system. And so you'll see that in the Acronis hosted and the SP hosted, you can do just about anything. But there are a few products where we do not have them yet available for the hybrid mode. And so you'll want to take note of that as you're considering the products that you want to sell and how you want to deploy them.